And for the people who have reported blind parents for being incompetent merely for being blind, if you randomly stumble upon this one day and you are a nurse who has done that to a parent, or you are a friend who thinks because they don't do things like you do them that they're incompetent, and you have called and ruined their lives because you took their child from them with that call, shame on you. Hey my treasures, it's Sirena and welcome back to my channel for another video. Today, as you can tell by the title, I'm going to be talking about the 10 negatives of blindness. I did a video previously on the 10 positives of blindness. And while I know the word negative has its own negative meanings and connotations, I didn't want to try to rephrase it all, like posting a video called the 10 challenges of blindness or the 10 cons of blindness. Not only is that not the opposite of positive, which is negative, but it seemed like a bit of a cop-out. It's kind of like using another word in lieu of the word disability. People are scared of these words, but they're real words. What I'm going to be talking about today, they are negatives of being blind. They're not insurmountable challenges, and that doesn't mean there aren't positives. But these things are negative, and I did want to shed some light on them as well, because I did shed light on their sister post with the 10 positives of blindness. There are pros and cons to every coin, and this is one that has plenty of both. So I wanted to share that with you guys. So without further ado, let's just get started with that. 1. We're treated like children. Case in point, the video I made talking about when a temporary crossing guard patted me on the bum like I was a toddler and sent me on my way. Yes, that happened. I will link the video in the description box below. It's not merely situations like that in which we're treated like children, though. Half the time, it's just the way we're spoken to. People condescend to us all the time in their tone, when they're trying to explain something to us. In their patronizing way, they correct us or forgive us when we've done something that might be socially inappropriate, like, trip. People tend to do exactly what I just did. It's in their tone. They assume we don't know our own minds or don't know where we're going or can't make decisions that any 6-year-old could make merely because we are blind. It's insulting and it needs to stop. We're not children. We have a disability, but that does not reduce our mental capacities to that of 6-year-old. It's insulting to the 6-year-old. Besides, 6-year-old's mental capacity is not reduced, it's just not as developed. We didn't freeze at 6 merely because our eyes don't work. 2. We are often touched without permission. I bring your attention again to the below link video, linked below. Not many people get touched on the bottom. That was pretty extreme, but we do get touched all the time. I have heard from so many friends and acquaintances who are blind or visually impaired. They too deal with this. They get grabbed by the arm or turned by the shoulders to face a direction people think they want to go in without even, asking them. People try to grab us by the arm, shoulder, hand. Hands just come out of nowhere and touch. They need to stop. Guys, it's not only impolite, but like me, I have a lot of triggers that are associated with touch. I'm not the biggest fan of it. If I know you well and we've established a relationship and you're my friend or a loved one, yeah, then I'll probably hug you. But even then, hugs can be a little uncomfortable for me. Like, the only person I truly hug without reservations or qualms or thinking about it twice is my 6-year-old daughter. And that's because she's my child, and there's a dynamic there that I don't share with anyone else. But touching people without permission is rude. It can be triggering. You can traumatize a blind person if you come out of nowhere touching them, grabbing them, pulling them, pushing them. Just don't touch them. They are people. We are people. We are people, and we deserve the same respect you would show anyone else. If you would not walk up to a random sighted person and start touching them and grabbing them and pulling them and pushing them, you don't have justification to do it to us. 3, we are continually underestimated. You're really pretty for a blind girl. That is only one of the things I have heard in my life. I mean, thanks, I'm pretty. I have difficulty believing that in and of itself due to my past. I will address all of that in another video. But for a blind girl, so yeah. Most of my blind friends and acquaintances will tell you they've stumbled across this in one form or another. We are underestimated in the workplace. We're underestimated in the way we should look, the way we should act, the way we should carry ourselves, the way we should pretty much do everything in life. Because we're blind, people expect so much less from us. You're amazing is something I think every blind person has heard or will hear at least 100 times in their lives. And while I understand, and I know a lot of my blind friends and acquaintances understand, people intend that to be a compliment. When all you're doing is walking down a sidewalk, it's not a compliment, because it suggests that you believe I am unique among my community. I'm really not. Actually, I'm pretty average. I'm walking here. That's all I'm doing. That's not amazing. Being able to leave my house isn't amazing. Being able to go shopping on my own is really not that amazing. Being able to work out at the gym, being able to navigate my way to the bathroom, being able to navigate through a locker room with a lot of twists and turns, it's not amazing. I'm nothing special. You can do it. I just do it a little differently. Wow. I watch you every day, and I think it's amazing how you just get out of the house. That's incredible to me. You're so amazing. That's not a compliment. Because at the same time, you're giving us what you think is a compliment. You are insulting every other blind person we know. You're telling us you believed before you saw us that we were too incompetent to manage this. 4. Common mistakes are used to reinforce a negative stigma. Has anyone ever dropped their keys? Have any of you ever spilled your coffee? Have any of you ever been so caught up in conversation with a friend or on the phone or in an audiobook or just in your own thoughts that you trip over a crack in the sidewalk? All of these things that you do and nobody looks twice at you for are attributed to us being blind and therefore somehow incompetent. We have to worry about reinforcing negative stigma every time we do something that is a pretty normal mistake. Spill our drink, drop our keys, trip over something. People see it happen and it's as if they're watching a massacre on live TV. People get very excited when these things happen. And by lending those things such excitement and such attention, you're telling the world this shouldn't happen. Just think about it. The next time you lock your keys in your car, it's because you were being absent-minded or you were distracted. You, in essence, were just being human. When we do something goofy or silly, drop our keys, spill that drink, bump into that wall because we're talking on our phone, or trip over that crack in the sidewalk, we're just being human. It has nothing to do with blindness. 5. Employers are terrified of us. There has been a study done, and I do not know the name of the study. I heard of this on a YouTube channel. 9 out of 10 employers anonymously asked, answered that they would not hire somebody who couldn't see. Employers think we're liabilities, even if the job involves sitting at a desk all day. Either we're a liability, or they don't want the hassle of trying to work with us, make accommodations with their software or their workplace, or whatever they might have to make accommodations for. Much of the time, the accommodations are not even that big. A lot of the time, we can bring in our own technology. Employers see disabled, disability, blind, visually impaired, and they panic. I wish we were this terrifying to Uber drivers. People with guide dogs would never get left behind. But the truth is, employers are ignorant and they don't want to be enlightened because they want to take the path that is easiest, not the path that proves them to be more than judgmental. I'm just gonna leave it there. 6. We miss out on so many nonverbal social cues. I read once that about 90% of social interaction is nonverbal. Facial expressions, being able to say things with your eyes or your hands, or a head tilt, or the lift of an eyebrow. Like, people can have conversations without actually having to talk, which to me sounds really fascinating. The writer in me loves that, and I want to learn how to do it. I want to learn how to understand that form of language, even though I can't ever really participate in it. But a lot of people use those cues when it comes to telling whether or not somebody's attracted to you if you're out and about with your friends at a club or a bar or someplace if you're blind and you go to clubs and such. But in those situations, nonverbal cues are key. Even if you're sitting at a bar and you look and you can sense that there's somebody off to your left there. What are they doing? Are they looking at you? Are they giving you a little smile, inviting you to start up conversation with them? Are they engrossed in their phone? It's the little things that could help avoid those awkward moments where you speak to somebody and you're either speaking to a pole or you're speaking to a person, but they're acting like a pole because they're just ignoring you completely because they don't have time for you. You would know that if you could see them or see the expression they were giving you or be able to tell that they're really not interested in speaking to you. Or, on the other hand, that this person over here really wants to say hi to you, but they might just be a little shy. It's just, there's a lot. And I wish I could be a part of that. And it's rough. It seems like a small thing, but it can be a bit of a confidence buster when you don't have those openings and you're not really sure how to find openings in verbal ways in a situation that may be pretty nonverbal. It's just complicated, and it makes interacting with people, especially strangers, just an exercise in anxiety, for me anyway. 7. Blindness can be used against us in emotionally devastating ways. I almost had this happen to me. I had I suffered through a custody battle, and it wasn't triggered because of blindness, but my being blind was definitely one of the biggest arguments used to try to prove I was an unfit parent. Luckily, it didn't succeed. I did win. I will get into this in another video. It's still very difficult and painful to talk about, so I'm really not there yet. But there are blind parents out there, either single parents or couples, who, without having proved themselves one way or the other, have had their children taken from them as babies because of nothing more than their disability. I was so lucky. I had an incredible hospital experience, incredible nurses. They showed me how to do things. They watched me do things just to make sure I could, but then they wrote me glowing reviews because I needed paperwork. I needed proof at that point. But there have been situations where a blind couple will go to the hospital and are treated like pariahs. They are treated horribly. And when that child is born, nurses automatically call CPS and say, I do not think this couple is fit. Why? Because they can't see. And there is so much ignorance surrounding blindness that CPS, they believe it. They just take these people at their word. They don't ask, how do you do these things? How can you learn to do these things? If you face this challenge, what are the courses of action you have lined up to handle them? No. In so many situations, parents have their children ripped from their arms because of something they can't change, because of being who they are. I can't even begin to tell you I'm sorry, I'm very sensitive. To this kind of discrimination, because I've been there. And you're made to feel like you are somehow less of a person and less capable of protecting and caring for and loving the child you brought into this world because you can't see. Blindness is not that big a deal in the grand scheme of the whole parenting thing. It's just not as complicated as everybody thinks it is. I honestly think it would be much harder to parent if you were in a wheelchair or if you were missing arms or legs. Not impossible, just a bit more complicated. It's not that complicated when you're blind. And people have to fight and miss out on so much of their children's lives. Even if they do get their kids back. Yes, that's a win. That's amazing. But what if your child is taken away when they're newly born? You might not get them back until they're a year, maybe 2. And yes, while they won't remember, you'll remember, and you'll have missed out on so much of their lives. This has to stop. People should not have their children ripped from their arms because of something they cannot change. That is like telling somebody you don't deserve to be a parent because you are who you are. I will never accept that as ever being a viable option. And for the people who have reported blind parents for being incompetent merely for being blind, if you randomly stumble upon this one day and you are a nurse who has done that to a parent, or you are a friend who thinks because they don't do things like you do them that they're incompetent, and you have called and ruined their lives because you took their child from them with that call, shame on you. You need to learn more about what it is you fear. Take it from somebody who suffered through real fear that I would lose my child based solely upon the fact that I was blind. I don't think it's possible to live without a heart. But parents living without the children they love, even the threat of that, it's like living without a heart. Good old test run. Let me tell you, that's not life. That's not living. That's just breathing and existing. And if you are one of those parents who has ever lost your child due to somebody's ignorance, my heart goes out to you, and I wish there was something I could do to help. This is the only thing I can do. I can talk and keep posting videos, even when my computer hates me. And I can show people what being a competent blind parent is all about. Hang in there. There's got to be a silver lining somewhere. If I can help you find it, reach out and let me know. And that's all I'm gonna say on that topic. Because as you can tell, it's very emotional for me. 8. Guide dog access issues. This is not a negative for everybody because not everyone has guide dogs, but for those who do have a guide dog, and that's going to be me come next month, yay! That is a real issue. I faced enough access issues when I had Tony. People don't want to let you in, and they don't care that that's against the law. Sometimes they don't want to deal with the dog hair in their establishment. Sometimes they're worried about allergies. Other times they just don't like dogs. You can stand up for yourself as much as possible, show them all the paperwork you want, explain to them you could get sued. They don't care. Some will back down because some of it's just ignorance, but a lot of it is just them being obstinate, pig-headed fools who don't want to listen, and it can be really frustrating and very hurtful. It can be humiliating as well because everyone's watching and everyone's staring and everyone's listening, and half the time if you have a bunch of people that don't like dogs, they don't care that that is your mobility tool and that you're a person who has the right to be in this establishment. They just want you gone because you're different. And that difference is apparently disrupting their lives. But ask anyone who's used a guide dog. They'll take it over not having one. 9. Ease of travel becomes a rare treat. Traveling can be difficult when you can't see. Not only are we forced to use Uber and Lyft a lot, which can get very expensive, if we don't want to use those options, then we generally have to plan trips a couple days in advance. That's not always possible. We have to make sure we know where the key points on that route are, even if we're just walking. Okay, have to cut it into pieces. Get to here. Okay, from here I go here. From there I go there. In new places, you can't just walk around and use signs to find your way about. There's a lot more thought that has to go into travel. You can't just get up and go. And sometimes that is so difficult. It fosters such a feeling of entrapment, and oh my goodness, I have it on this list because it's huge for me. Sometimes I feel like I live in a cage and my world grows by inches, by increments, every now and then when I learn a new route, and it's incredible to me how small such a big world can feel sometimes, even as it feels huge at others. 10. Assaults can become far too common. Whether it's a mugging or a sexual assault, I have experienced the latter many times. I've not experienced the former, but I've heard it happens a lot more to blind males, whereas the sexual assaults can occur more often with blind females. It's a fact, proven fact, that assaults are more common for blind people and others with disabilities. Especially for blind people, it's because we can't identify whoever it is assaulting us. Unless, of course, it's somebody that we know. I'm speaking more in a random vein. People you're not familiar with. Even if it's somebody you might go to work with every day, or someone you go to school with. I'm sorry, I don't mean to scare anyone. If you don't know them and know their voice, or know their mannerisms, or certain ways in which they walk, or breathe, or sound, yes, people can be identified merely by the way they breathe if you know them well enough. Then what are you going to say? This happened to me, but I don't know who it is. Yes, there are ways to tell, but they're not foolproof. And after something like that happens to you, whatever that something is, sometimes evidence is left, sometimes it's not, you're dealing with a whole host of other issues, and you're not really thinking, oh yeah, let's go identify who just did that to me. A lot of predators believe that because you can't identify them, your fair game. I wish I knew how to stop it, how to make it so that limitations did not turn you into a victim. My treasures, thank you so much for watching this video. I know it got pretty intense and pretty emotional there, but I think that's important. I want to be real, and these things are real, both this list and the emotions the items on it engender. I love you guys for sticking with me and listening to me ramble yet again. I've missed you, and again, bear with me, we're still working on the computer thing. If you enjoyed this video, please like, comment, and subscribe. If you do subscribe, ring that little notification bell so you are aware of when I'm posting new content just like this. I love you guys, and I will see you soon in my next video. Bye!